Um, okay, Marshall, I made this video just for you. You really opened an interesting topic. Um, like I said, don't get me wrong. I wasn't attacking U.S. particularly because it's problem everywhere. Um, Now, when you said that somebody needs to quit their jobs and you know whatever, um, you are kind of right. But when we are talking about modern day slavery, um, they will do. I give you an example from my country. So I live in Finland and I work as a police officer here. So I give you an example. There's a Finland has a lot of forests and we have a lots of berries. And well, because berry picking from the woods isn't really that kind of job that many Finnish people do because it's actually hard work. So there are lots of people coming from Asia, particularly Thailand, and and some of the so-called companies they treat those um, workers coming from Thailand really well, and they get their fair share of the salary. So I mean most. But for example, there was one incident where there was like 30, 50 people from Thailand, and it all started like right after they came to Finland. They picked them up from the company members picked them up from the airport, and they confiscated their passports, and so they couldn't actually leave. And also they didn't get the salary they were promised. That they invented all the time all kinds of fees they had to pay. So eventually some of the workers even got debt, which is uh, seriously impossible, but they did. Well, all was managed by this company, and so they were um, exploited in quite various ways, and they were treated just like slaves, and they got like ridiculous salary, which wasn't enough for them to pay a rent, which they owned the places, and they were quite disgusting places where they keep the people from Thailand, and they charged quite high salary from those. So when they kind of like lowered the salary and with the ridiculous rents, and they had to pay even the cars they use about with the uses of the cars they used to drive in the forest, and all kind of shit. And yeah, they got caught, and they got convicted, and they also had to pay uh, the money from the workers and from Thailand. Anyway, that is really direct slavery case, modern slavery case. So at this point, the worker is in a position that they cannot leave. They are in a foreign country. They don't know the language. They don't know what to expect. They don't know the laws. They don't. And in many countries, and I don't blame. In many countries, they don't trust police. In many countries, and not to brag about this, but Finnish police has been voted a couple times most trusted organization in all the police forces in Europe, and yeah, every nation in Europe has own police forces. And anyway, but people who come here don't know that. They have bad experiences. Police, they have maybe they have corrupted police in their country, and so forth. So the thing is that then comes the cases which are not that clear. Is it it's more like not based on facts, but kind of like opinion. Like definition of modern day slavery says that if you are forced to work by threatening punishments and stuff like that, and um, well, anyway, it's quite wide. Of course, we understand concept of to do work by force, and you are threatened to get punished if you don't do this and stuff like that. Now, if you go to a jail and in your country, I don't mean US, but in wide way, if there is no sentence which contains hard labor, and yet you are forced to work, and for example, you might get disciplinary actions and stuff like that, and yes, you are prisoner, and probably for a good reason. Is it slavery or not? Now, this is kind of like, because in old days in Finland, we used to have that kind of sentences which meant hard labor. So just like you had in US, when people who were prisoners, they went to build railroads and stuff like that. We had the same. I don't know how about you guys, but it doesn't exist anymore. In prisons, there are different kind of workshops, and here in Finland, I mean, different kind of workshops and programs which allow people to study and stuff like that, and do kind of handiwork, but they are voluntary. Now, and not only US, but quite many modern day nations have, even though it's not mentioned in the law or even allowed by the law, and yet the sentences don't say the hard labor, there are still prisons. Sorry, my English. There are still prisons which force prisoners to do, and I mean seriously, they force. You get disciplinary actions unless you don't do the work. So, is that a modern day slavery? That is more like it fits the category, it fits the definition, but it's kind of like how do you feel about things? And then there are some other factors, like quite many Arab countries have this too. The situation which I explained earlier, quite many, for example, Dubai or Saudi Arabia, they get maids from Africa, and they, not all, but some, pay really ridiculous sum for the job. It is good money in Africa, don't get me wrong, but you cannot survive with that money in that country where you are actually working. So, and they also, quite many, confiscate the passport. So the thing is that if you get paid good salary compared to your country, but the salary which you get in the country you are working on, and you cannot live with that salary, that defines that belongs to definition of slavery. Now, and this is not the slavery. This is more like a opinion. Like you said, it's easy to quit if you don't get enough money for if you apply the job and you get ridiculous salary and you cannot cope with that salary. Now, yeah, you said you can quit it. Yeah, that is right. But it's not that easy in some places. You know how the things are now worldwide. It's not always easy to find a job. And in case, if, for example, imagine a guy who has been jobless for a long time. In the beginning, that money actually makes his life better. But if the salary is still too ridiculous that you cannot buy, you barely might buy the food, but yet you cannot rent an apartment, or you cannot really do anything. But it takes so much time on from your life, like let me say like 60 hours per week. So you cannot do anything else. But you know it's 1 in a million chance that you actually got a job. So you are kind of like tied to that job. And I know you probably haven't have to fight this kind of situations. Maybe you have, I don't know. I cannot say this for sure. But the more higher education you have, the more choices you have. The sad thing is that there are people who don't have afford to higher education, or they don't qualify otherwise or something, and their only chance is to start working from young age. And if you don't have education, you are only fit to certain types of work. So you cannot really escape that circle. At least not easily. I'm not saying that nobody can. But yeah, so is that slavery? I mean, you are working your ass off. You are earning money for the person who owns the company or store or whatever. You are earning him money. He makes a decent living. And you make a lot of hours, but still you cannot, do anything except sleep somewhere, not necessarily inside, and you get your food. So in my opinion, every job should be, I don't mean that, of course, a person who has more education should earn more money, or is more experienced, or anything like that. I don't mean that is communism if you think that the all should earn the same salary. But the thing is that if you work full time, then in my opinion, you should make a minimum living, and okay, now I give an example from States, and and this is not only problem with the States. But for example, this happened few years past, and people from Walmart, they had to live. Well, they had to also beg for government food stamps. You have the food stamp system. So, is that right that your tax money goes to pay for those people who actually work, but there's some millionaire owner who refused to pay them a salary which should be enough for food and basic needs. I don't mean no luxury, not even a car if you need, but basic needs. I mean, you could pay a rent so you don't have to live in the streets and basic needs. That's all. And if that's socialism, yeah, then maybe I'm socialist. But for me, it's not truly insult. And insult only works if the person you are tossing the insult is insulted. I wasn't. Actually, I found this conversation quite interesting because that's how you learn and evolve. Not everybody has to agree with you. And I mean, basically me. You don't have to agree with me. That's your right. I don't get offended, and I don't even got offended about the insult or whatever. But the thing is that the only thing, or the only good way to learn is learn by experience. And if we get the experience only from people who agree with us and think like we do, then we don't really evolve. And sometimes I'm wrong, sometimes I'm right. Every debate or discussion teaches me something, and sometimes it's both sides have good facts, so there's no way telling which side is better. It's only like yeah, but you need learn like different point of view. You don't have to agree with the person, but when you learn to understand why he thinks or she thinks like that, that is also learning. So that's my 2 cents. And yeah, I'm old cop. I don't know if there's anything I can teach for anybody, but I'm eager to learn. That's it.